Hey, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven. One of my favorite topics is strategy. The other one is marketing. And today we're going to talk about strategic marketing with John North. Hey, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven. John North is with me, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and strategic marketer. John, thank you for joining us today.
Well, great to be here, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah. And if you notice, John is from down under, and as we say here in the States. So and you're in Sydney, right?
Yes, correct. Yep. Sydney.
Awesome.
Sydney, as they call it, like in the Olympics. And back in 2000, this guy announced the Olympics in Sydney. He goes, the winner is Sydney. That's what he called it. So it's like it's stuck a bit. So everybody goes, Sydney. Because he wasn't sure. I think he thought it was someone else.
That's crazy. So yeah, my daughter was down in Sydney about 10 or 15 years ago. Absolutely loved it. I would love to go down there. Heard so many great things about the city.
It's a funny thing, the people in Sydney go on holiday somewhere else, and I often wonder, because I've been here 20 years and I still think to myself, why are you going anywhere else? People pay thousands of dollars to come here to this place and you go somewhere else.
I know. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, so I'm the same thing. Everybody flies here and I'm like, why are we leaving? It's like, I think you get so acclimated to where you are. It's just, you just want to change the scenery.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I looked at your website, which, I'll be showing throughout the show, johnnorth.com.au. Yep. And you've written a lot of books. Most of them are bestsellers. All of them are bestsellers. Yep. And you really have a wide range of topics. But the thing that really caught my eye when I sent out the invitation to be on the show was this thing about strategic marketing. But if you could tell me kind of how you began in marketing, like what was the trigger that got you interested in this topic in your early years?
Well, it's kind of funny because I started as an entrepreneur. Like I wrote in my book about it. It's called The Eggpreneur. I've actually decided to call myself, where I actually was selling chicken eggs out of my mum's business. Right? She had a post office, and I used to sell these chicken eggs. And any of the stories that basically she never charged me because we have quite a few chickens, so she never charged me anything for the eggs. So it's 100% profit. Then one day she said, I think you should be paying for the feed for these chooks. And I said, no, I'm not making 100%. I'm not doing it. So I just cut the business down. But I was making a fortune on these eggs, man. In the end, I got the trouble. So I think I just got started really young. I used to actually make fake businesses and all sorts of stuff. So it's subconsciously, because I lived in a population of like 5 people, you had to make your own things up, right? You had to do your own thing. So I basically created my own stuff, my own kind of world, because there's no one else there. And so I think that visioning, like imagining and then doing it and actually pretending even, sort of set myself up. And then I worked for a bank. I actually joined the bank when I was 15. I left school at grade 10. I couldn't get out there fast enough. And so I worked for a bank, and bank taught me systems and processes and how to deal with customer complaints, which is a big one. I actually made like nearly $3 million out of customer complaints once. So the thing was that it kind of took me on this pathway, and eventually the computer industry came along, and I thought, okay, this is an interesting gig. I got quite interested in it. And eventually I left the bank after about 11 years and started this business, this IT business, right? Selling software and selling hardware. And I know nothing about marketing. In fact, I went to a demo once, and I was demoing this software, and the guy asked me a point of sale question about a barcode, which I had no clue what a barcode was, by the way. Back then, it's like 25, what's a barcode? So I tried to make shit up. Like I actually tried to make it up. Yeah. And he looks at me and says, you know something? He said, if you don't know something, you shouldn't try to lie or try and figure out. And I go, oh. And I never got the sale, obviously. And I learned one lesson then, is don't go unprepared. Yeah. Don't go in there unprepared. So I started thinking, what the hell, I've got to market this business. And what happened was there was a company giving me all these leads. So I was just being fed leads. So I didn't have to market at all, right? I was getting 100 leads a week. And I didn't have to do anything. And then they went broke. Wow. And I go, oh, okay. And everything dried up, right? So I'd scale this business up. I left the bank, started a new business, scale this business up, and realized that I knew nothing about marketing. That I actually been lazy. I'd been sort of spoon-fed all these leads, didn't really understand it. So I went and set myself on a journey, and I went and saw all these different marketers, and not just learning out of book, because back then Google wasn't really good. In fact, Google didn't exist. So basically you had to kind of figure it out yourself So I spent like about 100 grand on these courses, and some of these guys, gurus, were like just rip-off merchants. But I tell you what, they're good. It's actually good to watch a rip-off merchant. Sometimes you think what they do right and do it for good, right? Because they are smart, right? It works. I got scammed just recently, $4,000 off Upwork, and it's like, I know this stuff. I still got scammed. 20 years on it, doing this stuff, and I still got scammed. And so I think, it taught me a lot about marketing, about people, asking the right sort of questions. And it sort of evolved from that. And so I ended up running a software business and then starting a marketing business in the end, because we realized how successful it was. So if you just lay it on top. And the biggest thing that I found with marketing was people do not understand who their customer is and what they want. They just assume they want this thing.
Yep.
And they don't. And when you ask them, they go, I don't know how why are you asking that question? I don't want that. And it's like, and until you actually went in, so my whole demo in the end was going to spend an hour asking questions, not actually answer a single one of them. And that was a 90% success rate in sales. So what I realized in marketing, same deal, right? If you don't ask questions, you don't know who you're talking to, what you're talking about, what they want, then how are you ever going to sell anything to anybody?
Yeah, it's a great point that you bring up. It's, to me, the success in anything, sports, business, life, is really understanding and following the fundamentals.
Yeah, it's not hard. This isn't hard.
It isn't, well, unless you make it hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you've decided it's hard. But I think you bring up such a great point, which is, okay, I have a target audience. I got to find out what they need and want. And the key to really discovering that is asking great questions, listening to the answers, and then obviously solving whatever problems that has been through the discovery phase. And
be prepared to actually be, I wouldn't say abused by customers, but some customers will tell you the raw facts, and most people run away from that. They go, I'm going to be offended by that. And I think the biggest problem is the ones that don't do business with you. Like the guy told me about the barcodes. At the time, I was destroyed, right? But in reflection, I looked and said, he did me a favor there. He actually pulled me up and said, you're not going to get through this point of sale gig unless you understand what you're talking about. And you know what I mean? Like it's obvious now, but you know what the solution to the problem is? Don't open your big mouth and say stuff, right? Just ask questions. Keep asking questions until you get what you want, because they don't want to listen to anything you told them anyway. So it's quite interesting when I've sort of realized that, that's what you say, they don't trust a single word you tell them until they actually trust you. Yeah, it's like the asking of the questions and listening is what builds the trust. Yeah.
It's almost, you bring up a great point that is kind of enlightening, which is, I always tell people, they ask me, well, what's the best content that I should create on social media and email? I go, answer questions. What are the top 50 questions you get asked all the time? And then just answer their questions.
Yep.
And they're like, is that it? I'm like, I know. It's kind of simple.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but yeah.
They feel like they got to tell something.
Yeah, exactly. I think people want answers, but they don't. You can't always assume that that's the answer you're going to give them. So I think, to me, like it's asking questions and getting intimate with the audience. And the thing was, what I found was, a lot of people want to try and sell something to someone they never sold it to. Do you know what I mean? Like they'll launch a business and they'll try and sell something, and they'll end up not figuring out why they can't sell it, because they're trying to sell without human contact. I've got a client like that at the moment who's, for some bizarre reason, will not talk to the customer as such. She wants to sell it online, but she doesn't want to actually talk to anybody or do anything, right? It's like, well, great, perfect business, but it might take a while to get there. And so what happens is you've got to get in the trenches and get dirty, right? You've got to get in there and sell it. And if you can't sell 100 of them first, you'll never sell any more than that, all right? If you can't do it yourself and you expect someone else, like, oh, hire a sales guy, he'll sell it for me, well, he'll do a bad job of it probably, because he won't understand what pushes those triggers. Yeah,
what a great, I think that's a great stable principle, which is, if you can't sell 100 of it, you're not going to find somebody else that's going to sell 100 of it.
No, not if you're good at it, good at what you do.
Yeah, and I think, look, if you can sell 100 of it successfully, make money, you obviously figured out a system. Document that, now expand it.
Yep, exactly.
But if you can't get there, you probably don't have a system.
No, and they'll avoid it, right? So you become messy, and we're going through that process with my development, my app company in the moment. Is that we're building a sales systems of how to sell it so that I can then step away from it and let someone else do it. But until I actually can do it, script it, and I actually did a presentation the other day that actually talk about sort of the strategy stuff. I had this presentation. I didn't know whether it was going to go ahead or not. Like they were referred and stuff, so they're pretty warm.
Yeah.
But anyway, I decided to do this presentation that I hadn't really done before. And the reason I did it was so I could script it. Actually, hadn't really little to do with the presentation. I actually did it so I'd actually say the sound bites that I wanted in that presentation to cover everything. And it's all tested at the same time. So afterwards, I transcribed it and I didn't realize I said that. I didn't realize I said this, right? And I was actually reading what I said, and I don't even remember saying it or how I said it. It's quite bizarre.
This is a great takeaway. I'm with John North, best-selling author. If you're just joining in, or 6 months from now, you're just joining in on YouTube or the podcast. John, I love what you're talking about, and I think this is a great takeaway right here. Develop the system and then record yourself and then transcribe it versus trying to think it through. Just go with the flow, record it, and then, because and if you're closing with that thing that you're saying, that's obviously the system.
Yeah, exactly. And you built it already. It's a lazy, like I talk about lazy marketing, but also I talk about lazy business, because I think the thing is, if you have to do it and you have to really work hard, you can't sustain it. Can you really sustain this thing, right? See people go on Facebook saying, I'm going to do a Facebook Live every day. It's like, yeah, that's going to last maybe a week if you're lucky. Some people last a month, but then they give it up, right? Because it's too hard. You can't sustain it. So you got to think, how's the quickest, laziest way I can do this? And writing the scripts that way is the easiest way to do it, because then you don't, because what you're saying, what you write are totally different. And it's interesting books. The way you write it and the way you say it's very different. So you've got to sort of build that, and that actually builds this better script, I think. At the same time, I record it and I use it for training for the new salespeople. So I can show, here's a bad deal that really went sideways, and here's a good one, right? So you can actually see that. So it's strategy. The strategy there is to build it as you go, not at the end or never.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point, which is people wait for it to be perfect versus no, build it. Start with a system, whatever that is, and then keep reiterating, and then finally through failure and success and analyzing, A/B testing, etc., you kind of come to the, hey, here's the thing that pretty much works all the time.
And then I'll probably mispronounce this, but it's called Kaizen, which is a Japanese term.
Yes.
and basically, Japan went, like the story was, Japan went into America with their car manufacturers because the guy from America went to rebuild Japan after the war. And he was an American and had this idea of constant improvement. So when Toyota went into the American market with their cars, America, the big guys, Ford and all those guys, so these guys won't last, they'll go broke. We'll cut them out, we'll deal with them. But they didn't realize that Toyota had like a 50-year plan. Yep. And they didn't care whether they lost money for 10 years. They were going to stay there for 50 years. That was the plan. And so against that weight, they had no chance at all, because the competitors thought they were short-term. They were short-term thinking. They were long-term thinking was gradual improvement. And it's like glacier, right? As soon as that thing starts moving, that gradual improvement just layers on top of each other and becomes heavier and heavier. And so rather than this burst of activity and then suddenly, bang, you get tired, you basically put too much pressure on yourself to get it done. Yeah.
Good points. Constant improvement, Kaizen. Absolutely. I've studied that subject, and it's funny, when you talk to other marketers, they kind of come to the same conclusions. Like you've talked about Kaizen, you've talked about documentation, answering questions. It's like, I think people that are in this business eventually come to similar conclusions.
Same place. Yeah, the same place.
Hey, wait a minute. This is a universal truth right here.
Yeah. And that's why I guess I wrote, shameless marketing, but I wrote an app around that concept, because what happened was when I got to that point, I needed stuff to do it and realized I wasn't going to spend all this money on all these different applications. So I actually wrote an app to do it, because the thing was that, it's like, well, if it works in your business, I need it to work, then it is a proven theory or a point or a strategy that you should be looking at, because other people are doing it and asking for it.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions for you. And I'm kind of scribbling down here. So how do you define for you, when you're sitting in front of somebody, and you say the word strategy, what reaction do you get, and how do you get them to the other side to go, oh yeah, I need to be strategic?
It's actually two things. Two things that clients run away from or never book calls for. Bios and strategy. and so it's funny because we actually tried, when we do book publish, try and get the bio written first. It's bizarre because people wait till the end and say, no, because I know what will happen. You just run away, right? And that's the problem. They run away from it. They go, oh, strategy session. And I had a guy put this off for 4 months and then decided to keep sending stuff. And in the end, it was just a mess. I was like, where's your strategy? No strategy. They're just sending stuff as they thought of it. And so I think the biggest problem is they think that it's going to hurt. They should avoid it. And it's going to be, just, I think we talked off before camera, was like, oh, you're going to talk about it and think about it for, you're going to think about stuff. And the funny thing about it was that you can build a strategy in an hour, right? Yep. You don't need a day, a week, a year. You just need an hour. If someone can actually go for the helicopter and go down. I mean, I was stupid thing, but when I joined the software business and I took over this business in Sydney, when it was just about out the back door, I didn't really realize that until I got into the books later. But the thing was, they spent 3 hours, up to 3 hours a week on these staff meetings, right? And the first meeting I went to, it's 3 hours. I'm going, what are we talking about? And we're going through this meeting, we're ticking off stuff we already hadn't done yet. Oh, we're going to do that next week. Haven't got around to doing this. All these excuses. And then they spent half an hour on the phone, talking about the phone, because what was happening is they had a 1-800 number, which is like a free number you ring. And they only had one phone, and it was in the middle of the office, and the sales girls weren't picking it up. This is for a while, so 20 years ago. We go, it's like, yeah, well, just get a cordless, $20, go down there. And I go, wow, we didn't think of that. I said, how long have we been talking about this? Went back on the list, 6 months. 6 months of this. And so when he left, the guy that was running the show, because he loved documenting and like he didn't trust anybody, so basically everything was documented out. This minutes that they had all thing was like 3 pages long. And I go, we're starting again. And I said, this meeting goes for half an hour and stops. If we don't get it done in half an hour, that's it, right? And they were strategy meetings, right? They were getting staff together talking about stuff, but all it ended up being was a project management meeting, talking about things they hadn't done and why they hadn't done it. Right.
I get that. Yeah, it's sort of like, it's almost like, here's the checklist of all the things we should do that we didn't do, but you never came up with strategy. How do you define strategy to somebody? They go, if they've got like he said something very interesting. They think strategy is going to hurt. Why is strategy a pain point? Like, what is the mental block or the earlier moment in their life that makes them think that strategy is going to be like going to the dentist?
I think because there's going to unearth things they don't want to talk about. It's going to put the elephant in the room, right? It's going to say, oh, well, there's a good reason why we can't sell this, right? Or there's a good, or there's big reasons, there's big things that are wrong, and they don't want to talk about it. They'd rather avoid it. And the problem is once you avoid these big things, eventually they'll come to you and they'll hit you with like a truck. And so I think part of it's avoidance. It's like, I don't really want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
Right? You can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I think they're thinking about, oh, this is going to be a lot of work. So I'm going to have to do a lot of work here. So not only do I want to avoid it because of the pain threshold, but also want to avoid it because I have to do all this work. I'm going to have to do all these things that I don't know whether they'll be worthwhile or not anyway. So I've got no confidence in the outcome.
Makes a lot of sense. What do you do? Not that you have to give me your entire process, but if you could just kind of give me some highlights, how do you get them to overcome that to the point of where they now see the value of strategy?
I think in the customer journey, I always talk about customer journey with them. So either repackage it to something else. So don't call it strategy at all. It's just a meeting or, like a discussion. Usually discussions when you're in trouble. And so, like a discussion with you, it's like, okay, no, I'm in big trouble now.
We're having a discussion.
We're going to make a discussion, right? And so I think it's like, don't necessarily paint it what the picture you think it is. And then I think secondly is back to asking questions, right? Yeah. So what I find is, I said, where do you want to be? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And how do you want to get there? It's really simple, right? And so you can actually think about the journey about where you want to be in, and there's a great saying with Tony Robbins that says, people overestimate what they can do in a week, but underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And that gradual improvement, right? They take time and they think, oh, I can't do it. And so they're not future thinking. So I said, what does it look like in a year's time, in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time? What's it look like to you? What are you doing every day? What's your business look like? And start sort of dreaming that a little bit. Yeah. So that way it's not making it hard work. So where do you want to be? And what don't you like to do? And what do you do like to do? And kind of what's your superpower, right? What do you really want to do? And I went through this. Like I went through this from being, bank to running a software and IT business to being accounting software and business, and then writing software, and then going to marketing and come back to software. Why to do that? Because I like it. All right. I see I can actually deliver value at a bigger scale, right? One-on-one coaching and writing books and stuff is a slow burn. You can't do that at scale. Yeah. But if you can write something at scale, like you look at the person who wrote the Uber app, for example, right? That's a game-changing app. And they've affected so many people, good or bad, if you like, right? They affected the taxi industry, but it's certainly changed people's ability to make money, and certainly in this pandemic has made a massive difference. So these app software makes a massive difference in someone's life at scale,
so
right?
True. So true. Yeah, you kind of take for granted. Shout out to John Comte. Thank you for joining us. You're right. These apps have utterly changed it's changed industries, it's changed lives, it's changed economies globally. Couple more questions for if you see me looking down like I'm scribbling, that's because I'm looking down and scribbling, because you're dropping some really good knowledge here. Okay, so now you overcome that. What do you find is now they've come, okay, they have a strategy, they got the plan. Where do you really see them excelling? Like, where's the point where they start to go, wow, this is the right thing that we should have been doing the whole time?
Little wins, right? So a quick little win. I think if someone can win if you can go and say you're starting to, like I play squash up to 5 times a week, and if you win a couple of games, because people come to squash and I'm never going to win. I listen to them at squash. They go, I'm never going to win this. I'm never going to get this. I go, yeah, but you've got to lose. And sometimes it actually losing badly hurt is good for you, right? To really get pounded. And sometimes when I got completely wiped out last Friday, like this guy beat me 15-9, 15-9, 15-9. At least I was consistent, but it smashed me, right? I was like, this guy's improved so much more than me. And I used to be able to get close to beating him. I've beaten him sometimes. And it's like, whoa, that's a call out. Like I'll have to up my game. And so I think thinking about, a little win you can make, something you can do. And so when I do a strategic plan with a client, we'll just we'll use a thing called box notes, which is a bit like Google Docs. And we can lay out an entire strategic plan in an hour. And as soon as I go to milestones and straight down, okay, what can we do now? Who can do what, when, why? Yeah, right, and just great. 10 little things, right? Just let's do some stuff. I could probably compete Tony Robbins, but never leave the sight of an idea without doing something. Do one thing, all right? It's something I read in his book. Like my sister bought his book to me like 40 years ago, and one thing it's like do something at the side of an idea. Do something, all right? And so last week I decided I'm going to start a new podcast show, and so basically nothing was set up, and I had actually a lot of stuff behind the scenes I needed to get organized. So what I did is I sent out an email to a database that I know of, and within 5 hours, 100 applications for this podcast show that I hadn't even finished setting up yet.
Yeah, I love that. That's just so...
Pushes me, right?
Yeah, that's the way it should be done. I love it. You acted on the idea, and then you just started rolling. That kind of forced yourself to now, okay, I really have to set up the podcast.
Then spin back for the strategy, right? So, okay, now what's the strategy? Because I knew the strategy going in. I knew why I was doing it. Yeah. Who was going to be involved and what I have to do.
Love that. So, if you were to write down or list or document your 3 favorite top performing marketing actions for you, what would they be?
I think, and it's interesting. I've got a client at the moment. We just doubled their membership database, and the reason was he got to earn it. He earned because the customers, he had like 9,000 email addresses, but weren't really converting. He emailed them, and he basically, a lot of people come, I really like your content, and so I think you got to earn your right to be in their email box. You've got to earn their right to view on social media. You've got to do what you have to do to make them respect you and like you, right? Know, like, and trust you, because if they don't do that, nothing's going to happen in marketing, right? They don't trust someone, they're never going to buy from you. So earn the right. Think about how you have to earn that right. How to, don't just send a bunch of spam emails, and believe me, I've done it. Like, earn the right to be in that email box, right? Because that's a friend you're writing to, somebody else at the other end. It's a human being. And so I think people forget that with marketing. There's a human being at the other end, right? Yeah. So think about what's going on in their mind, what's going on in their world. So when you go to that marketing stage, think about that, and then think about where they are and what they do, and what they really get deep in. Like, it's probably not exactly a marketing thing, but I was on a trip away years ago when I was running my software business in North Queensland, and we were getting inundated with work, and this is a kind of idea of future thinking, right? So I'm on this thing with drug dealer staff member of mine, which I didn't know was a drug dealer until I used to be a drug dealer in former life. So very interesting conversations in this road trip, man. I drove like 15 hours, like, down the side of the coast of Queensland. And anyway, I said to him, "Oh, you're so busy." I said, "We're so busy. I've got to get an assistant, like someone at the front there, because I'm constantly being interrupted, and my staff are too busy doing stuff. I need an assistant." And so what I said to him was, like, she has to be pretty young, obviously people come in, they need to be friendly, all that sort of stuff. Probably blonde. I don't know why I said that. And so I just laid out this whole scenario, what she would look like, how it should be, and what a skill set would be like. Okay. Mm-hmm. I get back, I've been away a week, get back, big stack of mail on my desk. Right on the bottom of it was a resume. And I pull this resume out and I go, who's this resume come from? And one of the girls said, "Oh, someone at the post office's daughter said," because they go to the post office all the time, so, "Hey, things going? Oh, we're really busy." It's like, "You always seem busy. You need help, don't you? You should talk to my daughter." All right. So anyway, I said, "Okay, no worries." Well, obviously, it's pretty good. It's pretty good timing, right? And I get her in. She's blonde, 19. Very presentable, perfect person, perfect fit. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I thought about how it looked and got really clear. And I think the universe, because I'm not really that religious, but the universe will give you what you want if you're real clear about it. All right? If you're not clear.
This is the conversation I had with our team this morning, that exact quote. It's so funny. It's so funny you're bringing up the exact quote that we talked about. I agree. I think when you really want, and that's the key, and the definition of want that I shared with my team is earnest desire. When you're so clean, when your desire is so strong and so earnest, that's when the universe comes in and goes, now that you're clear what you want, like, it's almost like the universe becomes a vacuum and starts to fill that earnest desire for you.
And I think that, and then the next stage of that is don't sell to poor people, right? Because I think it's what, and it's come from a good friend of mine who used to say that a lot. And he said, because you think you're helping someone when you're not. No good deed goes unpunished, right? So you go in there and you start looking at something and try and help all these poor people that, they can't afford you. So what happens? You end up a poor person for lots of reasons, not just for money, by the way. And so I think thinking about where they are, like for me, LinkedIn is a great place, right? LinkedIn is so underutilized. And I think, I forget the numbers, but there's not that many people that actually use LinkedIn properly. So there seems like millions and millions of people there, but the actual underlying, it's a small community, really.
Yes, it is.
And I've got like 25,000 connections. I think that's pretty much everybody. They're connected to someone else, right? And so I think that's the thing is I look at that and go, okay, that's my perfect market. I understand it. I know who they are. They're much easier to understand than, say, Facebook, all right? Because people lie on Facebook. They don't lie on LinkedIn, bizarrely. They'll put their entire resume up. They put everything about themselves on LinkedIn. And then on Facebook, they'll lie about it. And it's like, what the hell? Right.
John, I just deleted my personal Facebook page last week. And you know what the strategy was? To focus more on LinkedIn and my podcast.
And, Elon Musk said that, Facebook gave him the willies. And I think it's a pretty good analogy, man. Like, it does give me the willies.
It does. And it's gotten very contentious on so many levels. Okay, so you mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned email. What's another favorite marketing hack or strategy for you?
Own your own stuff. So for me, what we realized was the power of the database is having your own stuff. So get them off those platforms onto your platform as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter where you go to get this thing. So something might be with YouTube, might be working for you one week and then Twitter the next. So it doesn't really matter. But if you don't have a mechanism to handle that process, and the other thing that I find funny is that most of the clients I talk to, A, don't have a price list, and B, don't have a process to sell it to them. So when it gets to the point where they actually sell it to them, it becomes really messy and horrible. And so what I say is make it really easy to sell, to actually take the money from your client, right? Don't make it easy, make it seamless for them, right? Because Facebook and those guys are going to make it really easy to take your money, right? And so that's the problem, is that people kind of think, oh, well, I'll try to get a market or get a following, you know, like on YouTube and stuff like that. But the reality is they're worthless to you unless they know who they are. And you don't know, and look at their email address, right? And so building that flow of making sure that they flow into something that then gives them some sort of positive experience to show them and keep them there and get them off those platforms. Because those platforms want you to have them on those platforms. In fact, they penalize you if you put links in there in your post, right? Particularly LinkedIn. And so you've got to be careful that what's happening is those platforms want to keep them there for obvious reasons. You want them off the platform. There's a tug of war there with marketers, and all marketers do is they play that line game where you go, oh, I'll just play around with this a bit. I'll sneak the link in somewhere else, and I'll, you know what I mean? But the reality is that they want you to stay there because they want you to consume that content. You actually don't want them consuming content because they'll end up either leaving somewhere else, getting distracted.
Yeah, it's how do I get them to my landing page for my offer, my free book, my free offer, so that I can grab their identity. And now, you know, it's, you know, I don't know if this quote is exactly true, but you advertise so you can get their email so you can begin marketing to them.
Yes, conversation. You know that Microsoft calls their emails conversations? And that's not by mistake. So I think people think an email is an email, but it's a conversation. It's just a Facebook Messenger or whatever. It's a conversation. It's not a message.
Yes. Because
that conversation can be like we're having a conversation. And so the thing is that people forget that. I think they think that's a one-way thing. You spurt it out and it comes and it bounces and that's it. That's a one-way conversation. But, it, you know, and I just turn a feature off in Outlook that drives me nuts where it actually puts them together. It's like, no, I don't want that conversation together. Like it confuses me because you're putting other people's conversations in there too, confusing the hell out of me. I just want that email, right? But the reality is that's a flow of information going backwards and forwards. In today's society, it used to be even email, like you'd send them an email, like a week later they'd respond to you, right? Now it's like, you haven't responded in 30 seconds ago. Are you still alive? You gone broke? It's like, what's going on? It's like, it's only 30 seconds, man. Like, you know, like, but that's the way they kind of do it. So I think, and I guess basically I'll show you something there was interesting, is that there, which I put on the back of one of my books, which might be hard to read, but that was my 5-step lazy way to marketing. All right. And that's basically founder.
They can find that book at johnnorth.com. Yeah, there you go.
And that's basically, I wrote this book in 2 weeks. This whole book I wrote in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because it was everything I knew that up to that point, everything I collected. And so it was easy. I roughed it out, I knew exactly what I had to write about, and then wrote it because I had to meet a deadline on the release. And the reality was that was the complete business system. So it's like start as a founder, figure out, explorer, organizer, investor, and time master was the 5 steps that I thought about. And that's what the process I go through every time when I think about something. It's the same process. Figure out the idea, explore how you're going to do it, organize it, invest in it, and then walk away. It's automated if you can.
Yeah, I think the key point in it, I like step 4, which is invest in it. You have guys that will come up with ideas. They have something, and I'm like, okay, are you putting money into it, and is it generating cash flow at all? Like, I don't even care. Like, he may be watching, so I won't mention, but I have a particular client who great plans and projections and this, and I said, great, how many of them have you sold? Because I haven't sold one.
Because he likes creating stuff. I bet you he likes creating stuff. I've got a client like that.
He loves creating stuff, and he knows everything about his product. He's actually very knowledgeable. Like, there's nothing you can't get by him that he won't tell you detail about. But the problem, I said, you you're so creative and you're so strategic and so planning, but you've never got to making it. No one's ever going to invest in your company. No one's ever going to buy from you. And I think back to your point, go and sell 100 of them. Go and sell 100 of them. Then you can go like Shark Tank and go, I've sold 100 of them and I have a viable business and a proven plan.
It's hard to sell 100 of anything, right? When you think about it, anything, either it's a $5 product because let's make the price really low, or a $5 million product, right? The other scale. It all takes time. It's the same process regardless of what you're going through. And I think that's the thing, is getting that process right, that thought process in that client's mind, that what we call, I wrote in a book about customer journey. So what's the customer journey look like? Where do they start? What happens? Where are they going? Who do they look like? And that's just that. They talk about avatars and all that sort of stuff. I don't really avatars. To me, it's just the person. And when we write books and we do books for clients, we say, look, think about don't write to everybody. Just write to one person. I want you to write to your perfect customer. Who does he look like? Male, female? Give him a name. Just basically, and go. If you've got a photo of them, put a photo in front on your computer. So when you're talking or writing, you're looking at them. So at the end of the day, you've got this situation where you're just writing to one person. And people don't like doing that. No, because they want to be everybody, right?
Yeah, and I think the other fallacy in advertising and marketing is we're writing for the masses, and there is no the masses. No one is the masses. People. Yeah, they're all individuals. That's awesome. So tell me what are you working on in 2021 and into 2022? Tell me about some of your future plans.
So what we're doing at the moment is that part of my journey was we did marketing and then we wrote books for clients. And what happened was when we started doing that, we realized that it really made it very clear. Once you write a book, you're very clear about your business, by the way. So this book is my blueprint of my business, right? Mm-hmm. And so then we went and did it. So I wrote a book on publishing, right? I published a book, which is quite a good book because you use it to clients to actually help them do the work. So basically it's not just for lead generation, it's actually to help people. Mm-hmm. And then we wrote this one just recently, which is called Startup Secrets. And this is about understanding your customer, right? This is quick, nasty, kind of lazy ways to do marketing. And so that's my lead generation to start the app business. So the way it kind of looks at the moment is we've got a plan to sell 100 sites within the next 12 months of the app. We've got about 40 sites now, the first initial testers. Number one in my job for the next year is to improve the app because we're doing that. But at the same time, you figure out the sales system. Who do those customers look like? Based on what we've already got now, we've done the test, we understand. How can I sell 100 of them? And now I've got to look at the people I got first are not the customers I want now.
Right.
Some didn't have a lot of money. Some didn't really understand the system. I sent something off the other day. I said, if you're not going to use the system completely well, I'm not selling it to you because I'm not selling your website here. I'm selling you a system. And so you've got to find the right sort of people. So what do they look like? What's the 3 qualifying questions you need to ask them? Build that out so that basically I can then scale and then employ salespeople that can repeat the process, fill the lead funnel, and then grow it from there. So the next 12, 18 months looks like getting 100 customers so I can get 1,000 customers.
Yeah. No, I love that datum. If you can get 100, then you can scale it and you get 1,000. Love that. That's such a great takeaway. If you are coming in late or some point you're watching this late, you're with John North, you can go to johnnorth.com.au because he's in Australia. That's what the AU means.
Which I can't get the .com, unfortunately. So
you had to go to .com.au. I know. It's unfortunate when you can't get what you want on those domains. It's one of the most frustrating things. And I think the frustration will grow even more. Although I am seeing a lot of .ios, and that seems to be very popular.
I bought an I actually did Evolvepreneur.io and did Evolvepreneur.app. All right. Yeah. Those vanity domains are great. Then trouble is they're expensive, right? But I bought a domain esys.io, right, years ago for a short link because it's the shortest thing I could get, right? Yeah. It's worth $5,000 now. That value there, that's worth $5,000 because it's a short name. People love short names.
They do. Absolutely. I bought Edwin.Vegas.
Right. Nice.
And I'm going to build that out just as a personal page about me as an author and stuff like that. I thought it's short. Edwin Vegas. I'm in Vegas, Yeah.
We started one, like I've got a .show. So I bought Startup Secrets .show because that was exactly what I wanted, right? So these new domains are going to work really well. And get down that list and have a look. It's quite amazing. Go and have a look at those vanity domains and have a look at the list of them. It's quite amazing. You'll find something there that suits your business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the world's going to tolerate more things outside the .com just because, it's all taken. John, hey, I really want to thank you for being on the show. I think, when you come out with your next book, let me know. We're connected on LinkedIn, my now new favorite social media. I've got about almost 16,000 connections, so I have a little work to get to where you're at. But I've been developing business on LinkedIn, but like I said, I got rid of Facebook for numerous reasons, but mainly so that I could really focus on business development and not get into all the political stuff, which I love to talk about. But I could do that all day long, but it doesn't
makes you no money. Makes you no money, but right, you can get as upset as you like, but it won't make any money.
Yeah, unfortunately, my political opinions are worth $0.
Yeah. Unless you're running for it, then there's no point, and you only one voter. So.
Yeah. So, John, thank you for coming on the show. Hope to talk to you again when your next book comes out. Please reach out to me. I'd love to interview. We could talk specifically about whatever new book or new app you're coming out with.
So the strategy is 1 a year. So basically, I've written 7. So I did 2 in 1 year. So I've got myself a bit of a credit for 2021.
There you go.
But basically, I'm going to do 1 a year. So we've got another 2 to go at least, maybe 3. I'd say 10 is the goal.
Awesome. Once again, thanks. Hey, guests on Growth Driven or future guests on Growth Driven, thank you for supporting the show. Hope you get a lot of value out of this, because that's what it's all about, is giving you value, giving the insights. I have learned so much, John. I've taken so many notes today. If you see me looking down, it's just because I'm writing my own epiphanies as he's talking.
Nice. So I do my shows, right? You learn something, right? It doesn't matter about the audience at the end of the day. If you learn something, at least something, you got something out of it.
Absolutely. Okay. Once again, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.